morning. Today we have Keith, and he's basically an Amazon expert when it comes to all this, and he's gonna really help us come up with some Amazon optimizations and strategies. And he's gonna give us a quick intro, and then we'll dive right in after that.
Yeah, thank you, Victor. So I've been, in the e-commerce, specifically the Amazon space for about 3 years. I have a broad range of experience from helping out agencies to working with brands. So I've kind of done it all, both on, the 1P side and the 3P side and with multiple categories and strategies. So, I feel like I'm pretty well-rounded.
Yeah, that's great. Starting out, what do you think when it comes to all Amazon sellers want to do is optimize their listing to increase sales. That is the goal. What can brands do to make their product stand out from everyone else?
So I always go back, I think a lot of brands kind of get away from what they're selling. They've been selling their product so long, they don't really understand it anymore. So what I mean by that is I think if brands can define their product as a want-based product versus a need-based product, that's a great way to start your optimization. I can give you some examples. So we'll say a need-based product. So let's say you start some college classes, you need some pens. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You search writing pen or ballpoint pen on Amazon app. You buy probably the first thing you see, top, first or second. You spend under $10. The whole process probably took less than 60 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reality on a lot of these need-based products. You're not looking at the second image. You're not looking at the bullet points or the A+ content. It's really price and placement. The other one, so a need-based, let's say you get a new job, corner office, you want a nice custom writing pen. So want-based, I misspoke. So want-based on the custom pen, basically, your search process is going to be a little bit longer, a little more in depth. So your search term might be a little more granular, a little more specific, long tail versus short tail. You're going to look at more than probably 1 to 3 products. You might even make it to the second page. So this is where, A+ content, bullet points, infographics, really describing your product. They're on a want-based product. The customer is less concerned about price and placement as about being informed of what the product is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm curious on your perspective. So, what as a customer on looking at a need-based product, what do you think the customer is looking at more? Do you think they're looking at, okay, this price is lower, I need this product, and they're looking off of just based off price? When it comes to need-based products, what is the best metric to look at when it comes
So
to
I
that?
think it's price and placement. I always see on LinkedIn where people are saying, top of search placements, the best performer, conversions 2x. Well,
Mm-hmm.
On a need-based product where you need that pen right away at a low price, I definitely agree. On a want product, that top of search, if that customer is going to be making it midway or to the bottom of the page anyways, that might not be the case. So I think definitely price and placement. Now, this is also going to depend on the search term. There's a lot of ifs and different scenarios, but I think if you come at it, your optimization from understanding your product and how customers are viewing it, that's where you should start and work your way from there.
And I'm curious on your perspective. Would you feel that it's important to establish brand on products that you only buy one time? Because we know it's important to establish brand on reoccurring products, like let's say dog food. You want them to keep repeating purchasing and keep buying the product over and over and establish that brand. But when it comes to purchasing the product one time, what is your perspective on investing all the dollars in building your brand? Should you divert that spend somewhere else, or do you still feel like it's valuable to reinvest in the brand?
No, I mean, I definitely think it's valuable to reinvest in the brand if you're coming from an omni-channel approach. So if you're just selling on Amazon and you're getting those 1x purchases every 5 years, I'd probably be less concerned in the brand aspect. Whereas if you have, your Shopify, you're on Walmart.com, your other places, you have cross sell, upsell options for the customer. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I think that makes sense. When it comes to want-based products, what do you think? I know it heavily depends on the product, but generally, what do you think customers are looking at when what is the most important metric to look at? Is it the images? I know it's important to look at everything, but when it comes to importance of the metric itself, what do you think is more valuable to the customer in want-based product? Is it the reviews? Would it be the images? What, in your perspective, what is the most important there?
Yeah, so I would definitely say probably reviews
Hmm.
top. Title, so you want something to hook the customer in. Main image, image carousel, bullet points, and then A plus content. Um, the reality is most customers are going to be looking at the images, reading the title. I'd probably say, on your higher end premium products, someone's going to make it through most of the carousel. Bullet points and A plus content, maybe. I mean, they're good to have, but they shouldn't be your focus right away.
What are your thoughts on? Do you think that in the bullet points, do you think it's worth having SEO optimized bullet points? Because we know now in mobile that they're going down to the very bottom, and that's very important on Amazon when it comes to mobile search. What is your opinion on optimizing your bullet points? And do you think it's worth the effort on doing it across 100 different ASINs? Like, I know we should always have bullet points in there, and I understand that and having those relevant key terms, but is it really necessary to fully optimize them and keyword stuff and everything else when it comes to that, and will actually improve our rankings by doing that?
I'm not a believer in keyword stuffing in any way. I'm very much a believer in just sales velocity leading to your rankings. I think, if you're kind of asking longer versus shorter bullet points, which just seems to be the main argument.
Mhm.
I think if you have multiple SKUs, if you can come up with a good base, you know, basically this bullet point can represent the brand, this one can represent our warranty, etc. And then come up with your base, come up with your specifics for your top SKUs, and then A/B test any other questions you might have. Longer versus short. I have found that nothing is there are best practices, but there is no set guidelines. I've had some brands where longer bullet points, performed way better in A/B testing. I've had other brands where shorter bullet points actually perform better.
Yeah, that's great. And when it comes to launching a new product on Amazon, what are your strategies and ways to optimize that to start getting sales? Because Amazon's a very competitive space now, and it's very difficult to just put a product on Amazon and just let it sell. So, what are your strategies and optimizations to actually make and pull sales through on these new products?
Well, if you can get your product, with best practices for optimization without any testing, start your PPC. If you've built a brand with a social media following, leverage all your different Instagram, Facebook. If you have an email list, really come out swinging as hard as you can. A lot of people don't realize that, how much external traffic can pump up a listing. There's only so many organic searches, only so many ad attributed sales you can get. So by boosting your listing with any external source, you're really going to get a head start on your launch.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I don't see a lot of Amazon sellers leveraging and building up customer lists. It's very it's very a lot of Amazon sellers could be remarketing to them and remarketing to their customers, but they don't. Amazon is taking away that customer list now in about a month from now. But right now, we have the ability to remarket to their customers, to any customers that they have, and pull them through and get and build customer lists and everything else. But I don't see a lot of Amazon sellers doing that. What are your thoughts on that?
So I've, personally, I'm not a huge fan on using any of those lists. But you can build a strong email list, from having a Shopify, and there's a lot of apps where you can collect email, by opting the bar. Did I for a second?
Yeah, you did. You did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Just making sure
So,
everything's going
never
through.
been
That's great. Yeah.
a huge fan of the remarketing tactics from Amazon, but with Shopify, there's lots of apps where you can build a decent list. They're offering a discount code or information, and if people love your brand, a certain percentage of them are going to make it to your web store. And if they're that engaged to sign up for a discount or email list or whatever the app it's focused on, there's a good chance they're going to repurchase from you when you throw an offer related to Amazon in the email list. So that's 100% white hat way of collecting emails where you can use for future launches.
And all Amazon sellers have been going through the horrible inventory limit. Like we're constantly having to make a month-to-month decision on how much inventory to send in and reach that limit without going out of stock. It's a constant battle.
Yep.
Do you have any strategies or optimizations to really make it where that limit is increased by chance?
I don't. There are some black hat tactics, but I wouldn't recommend them. What I've told or what I've suggested, a lot of people do the straight from direct import straight into Amazon FBA.
Mhm.
And with these inventory limits, I've actually suggested like, hey, maybe have another address, whether it be your garage or a warehouse, where you can ship some of your product to, have it on hand, and if you need to go fulfilled by merchant, you have the capability. It's not optimal. You're not getting the Prime badge. You got to take a dip in sales, but at least you can still fulfill some orders.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I've been recommending a lot of clients to actually use a 3PL just because Amazon's huge delay in actually being able to fulfill inventory. Like, and for one client, we had it like perfectly timed to where it would go into the inventory at the exact moment, and we would have just a few units left, and we have it completely timed out. But Amazon, for some reason, just took 2 weeks to process our inventory. We got it into their warehouse and they just randomly took 2 weeks, and it's crazy. So luckily we had that 3PL in place, to where we could fulfill all those orders without going out of stock and losing all those rankings, losing all that traction that we built up through all these years. So having a 3PL in place is almost critical because of Amazon's horrible inventory limits.
Yeah, I would agree. Hopefully these, 40-day lead times and on checking in products as a, you know, into 2020, beginning of 2021 thing, and hopefully that goes away by summer. But yeah, no, if you can afford it, having a 3PL, especially if you're self-fulfilled Prime, if you have that capability, most people don't, but there's a lot of 3PLs that can meet those metrics.
Yeah, especially after Amazon's new seller fulfilled Prime rules. Like, they just don't want anyone to be seller fulfilled Prime at this point. Like, they're basically saying you have to be perfect in every single way, and if you're not, we're just gonna cut you off. Like, there's no way we can do anything without that. But you don't need a lot of money necessarily for a 3PL if you use like Deliver, all these other warehouses, and that where you can fulfill those orders. It might not be as cheap as Amazon's, but you'll still at least be able to fulfill those orders, because that deficit that you're going to lose in traction will most likely outweigh if you went out of stock. Because as we know, when you run out of stock and then once you put your listing back up, you're not going to be in the exact rank you were last time. And you're going to lose all those rankings because you have less data to work with. And it makes it where almost always staying in stock is always going to be the best option, even though it might not be as profitable. So it's super important to realize that, just so you always keep your traction up and always have that as a backup in case anything goes wrong with Amazon.
Yeah, and that, with the 3PL model, if you are trying to leverage that in FBA, just the, increased inventory that you have to have to cover both options. And then if you're trying to do FBM as well. So, no, there's a lot of struggles, especially with the FBA model, and hopefully these get resolved pretty soon.
Yeah, definitely. Also, I would love to hear your thoughts on what strategies do you use to get those products to page one? Because every Amazon seller wants to be on page one. That's the one place where we want to be because almost all the customers are going to that page and they usually never go past page two. So what are your strategies to actually get on page one on Amazon?
So sales velocity, in my belief, is the number one factor. And if you're doing kind of some of the things I mentioned earlier, where you're leveraging PPC, external email lists, external social media, possibly some external paid search ad or paid social ads, leveraging all those together, you have a good chance. But your product has to meet the criteria of deserving first page. With reviews, quality, price point. It is possible to get a premium product on the first page, but you typically don't see a premium product that is a large multiplier. So if most products are in the $10 range, you might see a premium product at 20, 25. Very rarely will you see one at $50 to $60 range just because the sales velocity just doesn't match these cheaper options.
True, you're so right. And when it comes to analyzing, will my product be on page one? That's so critical because you have to check, like, okay, if all my other competitors are priced at $20 and I'm going to try to rank at $40, your price competitiveness isn't there. And then it comes down to you have to show that you're an extremely premium product if someone's going to pay double the price. And if you don't do one or you either have to have really strong brand or you have to have be priced very competitively to rank on Amazon. And it makes it where it's really difficult if you don't. So make sure when you're analyzing, every Amazon seller says I want to be on page one, but very few actually analyze what can we do differently to actually rank on it. What are the competitors doing? Are they priced competitively? Do they have better bullet points? Do they have better titles? Do they have better images and everything else? And then matching that so that you can also get on page one just like everyone else is. So it's super important to be unique and use the same strategies they're using to get on that page because it's so important to analyze that page and making sure that you have a chance at competing with your competition.
Yeah, so you brought up a good point is analyzing your competitors. One thing I like to do is try and figure out where they're getting their external traffic. So going on a little bit of a hunt, going to their social media pages. Is the link going to their Amazon page or is it going to their brand store? Looking at Google, do they have Google rankings, organic rankings for some of the top search terms on Amazon? Do they match Google? Google is ranking a lot of listings front page. Well, if you have a competitor who has front page placement, first or second on Google for a particular search term, you'll probably never outrank them. And that's just the reality of it.
Yeah, that's so true. And I know you did dive into some Google SEO tools for Amazon. What are there any insightful things that you can give us that may be relevant when it comes to trying to rank Amazon products on Google? Anything interesting there in that data that you saw?
Yeah, so for my analysis of it, so there's a lot of tools that can do this. I'm not going to recommend any particular SEO tool, but you can always pull your canonical URL from your listing. If you right click, go to page source, control find canonical, that is what Google's ranking. And there's a lot of rumors that whatever your 5 keywords are in that canonical, it's an SEO booster. It's an exact match URL. So what I've noticed is most times when they're ranked for a search term, their canonical URL has the exact match phrase for that search.
Hmm. And have you seen that that's actually proven right, or is it kind of just like a rumor?
Well, so it's my analysis.
Oh,
There's
okay.
really nobody else looking into any of this on Google. I think I'm the only one that's mentioned it on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I mean that's great. And also the way to change what your canonical URL from what I believe is in your title you have the first 5 words, then you put a dash, and that's actually how you change the canonical URL. Is that correct?
So when you can request a change from Seller Central. They used to do it. I haven't done it recently. But if you're wanting to control that URL when you make a listing, you just make your title with whatever 5 words you want in that URL. Create the listing, leave the title 5 words. It'll naturally make that URL. And then later on, a week or two later, you can change it and you'll have the exact canonical that you want.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. And you're able to also track the effectiveness on that using SEO tools, the amount of traffic that's actually going to it.
Yeah, so Google has a lot of the same tools used for Amazon, like search volume, etc. It's not exact, but if a search term has 100,000 searches per month on Amazon, there's a good chance it's going to have that or more for just Google. Now, whether they're probably not necessarily shopping, they might be looking for information, but you're still driving tens of thousands of users to your listing.
I'm wondering if that will impact your conversion rate. Like, I'm
Uh,
wondering. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah,
Yeah.
probably would drop it because they're not necessarily in market and shopping. But to me, conversion rate matters less if your sales velocity is through the roof.
True. Yeah, it all comes down to how much money you're making for Amazon, at the very end, and yeah, that's great. And what are some other strategies that do you see that other Amazon sellers are not using but should be using?
Um, I would say more A/B testing.
Mhm.
There's a lot of tools out there that will do it for relatively cheap. Even Amazon itself has a few tools now for the titles and A+ content right in Seller Central. I don't see a lot of analyses or people talking about the results from their A/B testing.
Yeah, and I do think it is super important to A/B test, but it's also very difficult. Like you can use like Splitly and all these other tools to calculate. Like let's say if you change an image for a week and you want to A/B test that main image, it's very difficult to know that. Like let's say if you get a 10% bump, but you never know like what week might also have another 10% bump because of how much the numbers change per week. The main image is a little bit easier because everyone looks at the main image. But let's say if you wanted to A/B test like bullet points, or if you wanted to A/B test like your third infographic image or something else like that, it's very difficult because of how little people might be able to see that, and to track sales accordingly based off the Amazon metrics that they give you. Do you have any other insights when it comes to how A/B testing should be done to kind of?
Yeah, so I mean that's live A/B testing, and like you mentioned, because rankings are not static and search volume's not static, there's a lot of factors that can skew the results. The other options, non-live A/B testing, pickfu.com. Basically, it's almost like a survey monkey where you can do polling. A little more expensive compared to Splitly because you're paying for individual polls. But if live testing is too risky, if you have a particular ASIN doing most of your volume, let's just say millions a year, and you can't risk live A/B testing, you could always do something like PickFu or microworkers.com to do non-live testing.
Hmm, yeah, that's really interesting, and that way they don't have to worry about messing up their listing. Okay, yeah, that's very valuable actually. Is there any other strategies or optimizations that you can think of right now that Amazon sellers should be doing? And it could be across inventory, it could be PPC, it could be images, it could be bullet points, it could be titles. Anything else Amazon sellers that should be optimizing to take their strategy to the next level for them?
Yeah, so any one thing, this is kind of basic, but one thing I always recommend, when you're doing a change on your listing, you're looking at it from a desktop perspective.
True.
Everyone's doing the changes on desktop.
Mhm.
Any change I make, I immediately look at it on the Amazon app to see how it looks. Images that look great on desktop, especially A+ content. it looks great on desktop. You get to mobile, and it's an endless scroll that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, like you're so right. And especially like when it comes to like A plus content, there's certain modules that make it where like you literally just have to scroll on the phone so far down, you're like it's not worth it for the user to go through all that. So you're so right. It's because we're all ingrained, we're always making changes in our Amazon Seller Central on desktop. Sometimes we just forget to look on mobile. So that's a great insight. And I know there are Chrome extensions that also you can see make it where you can see it on mobile a little bit easier, but it's sometimes it's just good to use your own phone and kind of just see what the user experience is, because a lot of these infographics look fantastic on desktop, but
Mhm.
they don't look very good on mobile, like unless you have like supersonic eyes where you can zoom in like
That immense
crazy,
font.
like most of the text is going to be too small to read. So make sure you make it big enough and really look at your mobile listing to see if it's worth looking at.
Yeah,
So,
I would agree. And you mentioned earlier some of the extensions where you can see it on mobile. I've used those; they're great. It can usually show you Android compared to Apple, but I've noticed the Amazon app will sometimes show things a little bit different, and I think most people are shopping on the actual app.
yeah, you're probably right. So it's probably better just to look at the listing itself on your phone. But yes, it takes a little bit longer, but it'll be a lot easier to come up with optimizations because, as we know, most of the customer base is going to start moving to the app. Like it's everything's going to mobile. And it's important for us sellers to optimize for mobile because that's what the customer is going to be shopping on for the most part. So it's super important for us to always look at that and see what the customer experience is. That's
Yeah,
100% right.
you did bring up a good point. So mobile versus desktop. In my experience, your premium high price products, if you're paying $500 or more for something, it's very likely you're on a laptop or a desktop.
Yeah. Wait, so are you saying that the higher the price of the product, the more likely they're going to be on desktop?
There's a good chance. I mean, if you were, let's say, paying $1,000 for something, yeah, a new computer,
Hmm.
would you do that shopping experience only from your phone, or would you also do it from your laptop? Would you get on Google? Would you?
That's true because when I look at the products I'm about to purchase, when I'm doing a lot of researching on what product I'm going to buy, I stop looking on my phone and then I go to my computer so that way I can constantly search and do more research on Google and everything else. And I'm constantly have like I have 20 Amazon tabs open to see what and like click through which one, like if I'm buying a new computer, I'm looking at the different specs on that computer to see which one I want and to compare them. So that's really fascinating,
So
actually.
your journey, let's say you're looking up specs on Google, your journey probably will take you back to the Amazon listing, but on your desktop. So that's where, having great on mobile and on desktop makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And I would also see it as super important to see if your product does require a lot of research, like a computer. Like every computer is different, like you can get the exact outside, but there's 1,000 different specs inside a computer that makes it different. So that's where I could see making a lot of blog content, like seeing what the user is going to search on Google and having your listing pop up there. So like for example, creating blogs, how to analyze a computer on Amazon, what specs to look for on a computer, and creating blog content on that. So that way, when the user searches it on Google, that way it can go to your Amazon listing too. So that now that
Ah,
you know that, be a
so
great,
like
great
little text snippets, so it automatically pulls yours.
strategy. Yeah, I mean that sounds like a great strategy, and that's a very interesting insight. I like that. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention before we wrap it all up?
No, I think we covered a little bit of everything. We'll definitely have to do this again for a round two. I'll come up with some more in depth discussion points.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming on, and thank you everyone for watching. We're gonna wrap it up right now. Thanks for coming.
Thank
Bye.
you.